Thank you. It is truly an honor to be here. I want to thank Kara for inviting me out to share my story with you. One of my mentors when I was an undergrad learning about communications and corporate media, and especially public speaking, said to me, Kevin, don't ever start a presentation soon after lunch by asking the audience to close their eyes and do a visualization exercise. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes right now and do a visualization exercise with me. With your eyes closed, what I want you to do is focus an image in your mind's eye, an image of a stop sign. Regular old stop sign, you see them every day, right? And without opening your eyes, go ahead and shout out to me. What color is it? And how many sides does it have? Okay, all right. Some different answers there, but keep going with you. Keep those eyes closed. We'll try part 2 of that visualization. Part 2, I want you to visualize an image of a yield sign. Regular old, everyday yield sign. You see them every day. And again, without opening your eyes, how many sides does it have? 3. And what color is it? Yellow. All right, open your eyes. Let's see how you did. The results of your test are right here. So we have a stop sign, some creative stop signs, but you got the basic gist of it, right? So it's red, white lettering, sometimes tie-dye if you're in a creative area, but you got the stop sign pretty close. The yield sign, not so much. Yield sign, I heard yellow. Raise your hand. Was there anybody that said red? There were a couple of people maybe that said red. Every time I do this, the overwhelming response is yellow. There's a reason for that. Yield signs were yellow until about 1982. It's true. In fact, if you're a geek like me and you research this kind of stuff, you'll find the Department of Transportation says they started changing all the yellow yield signs to red in 1980. It took them 2 years to do it. And they finished in Oklahoma City, which ironically was the very first yield sign that they ever put in. But what's interesting about this, and what this illustrates, is how easy it is for us to hold on to old, inaccurate information, and we have no idea we're carrying this old, inaccurate information around with us. It gets stuck there. And what's also really interesting about this is that now, as the Dean of School Culture at a preschool through 8th grade, when I ask young children to do the same visualization, they tell me yellow. They've never seen a yellow yield sign. So why do they say yellow? Well, one of the interesting things that happens that I'm not going to go into in my talk, but you've heard pieces of in some of the other talks, especially around brain research, and you'll hear some more later, maybe with mirror neurons. But we pass things on to other people, sometimes without even talking about them. We pass things down. The principles and the values that we hold get passed on, even without us explicitly doing something to pass them on. There are people in this room that may have never seen a yellow yield sign, and I'm willing to bet that you answered yellow. There are people in this room that on the next break are going to corner me and argue with me about how there's a yellow yield sign on the corner of their street. But the point is this: we carry around old, incorrect information all the time. Thinking that yield signs are yellow is not going to change the way you drive home today. But what I'm here to talk to you about is the yellow yield sign of education. The yellow yield sign of education is thinking that we're going to change and improve the way that children behave in school by using punishments and rewards, or by using punitive systems of isolating them from other students with techniques like suspension, sending them home, or putting them in a different room in the school where they need to think about what they've done, right? This is the yellow yield sign of education. There's no compelling research that says this approach helps students learn and grow the parts of their brain that are responsible for making better choices, especially the parts of their brain that are responsible for learning how to show up in relationship with other students. Empathy, compassion, kindness. No research anywhere says that punishing them when they do wrong is going to help them develop those things. So where is this coming from? Well, restorative justice is an old idea, started in ancient Maori tribes and Native Americans sitting in a circle passing a peace pipe. And it's brought back now in criminal justice systems. It's brought back in colleges and universities. I spent about a dozen years as a college administrator, and the first time I learned about restorative justice was when I was at CU Boulder in 1999. And in my many different positions in different schools, one thread that ran through them all was that I wore a hat of a student conduct officer. And so when a student violated a rule on campus or they misbehaved somehow, they would come and meet with me in my office, and in my infinite wisdom, I determined what their punishment should be. For example, when the student decided it would be really funny to pull the fire alarm in the residence hall at 2 a.m. to see who was sleeping with who, right? And sent 250 college students out onto the snowy fields of Colorado in their jammies and slippers at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm sure that student had no thought as to how they were impacting all these other students. But I'm sleeping at home in my nice bed off campus and come in the next morning and have to determine what the appropriate consequence is for this student, with no input at all from the 250 students who had to deal with what this knucklehead did, right? So I always felt like something was missing. Every time I had one of these meetings, something was missing. Why am I getting to decide what the outcome of this is? Why am I getting to decide the best way to resolve this conflict, or to address the impact here, or to inflict some kind of punishment that's supposed to make them not do this again, right? And so my colleagues at CU Boulder decided to get a restorative justice program going, where basically what you're doing in restorative justice is, instead of using a punitive approach, you're putting everything through the lens of understanding the impact, the harm to others, and then moving into a process of inclusively determining a plan to repair the harm. So the victims have a voice in the process. The affected community has a voice in the process. The offender has a voice in the process. Nothing goes on to an agreement that that offender is going to do unless the offender also agrees to do it. I also used this approach in law enforcement. For several years, I worked for the Lafayette Police Department, where we built a restorative justice program, mainly to deal with juvenile offenders. And in the first 3 years or so, we had about 300 offenders come through this process. Only one reoffended. That's a far cry from the national average on recidivism in criminal justice or in schools. About 80% of people who commit a first offense will likely commit another offense across the country. 1%, big difference. Big difference. Think about the kind of money that's going to save a city. Think about the kind of time that's going to save a police force. It's pretty amazing stuff, right? So now I bring this into schools, and the problem we're trying to solve is, how do we create a community, a culture in this school that supports students' growth, learning, and success? Well, what we know about schools is that students will succeed best when they have a sense of belonging and a sense of safety. Nothing is more important than those two things to help a student succeed. They need to know they're safe or feel safe, and they need to feel connected. And so we do things that are part of the restorative justice principles and values. Different kinds of practices use the principles and values of restorative justice, but one is a connection circle, where you're sitting in circle and you're connecting with each other, and everyone's voice is equal. That's the power of a circle. Everyone's voice is equal in that circle. And then when students learn that process, they can apply it to using a circle process to solve a problem. And when you solve a problem involving all the stakeholders, you reduce the fact that someone's going to commit another offense. Because one of the things we know about victims is that hurt people hurt people. Victims who don't get their needs met in a process are likely to become an offender. Hurt people, right? So one of the things that we do at Flagstaff Academy in Longmont, Colorado, is we're infusing the entire culture with restorative practices and values, changing the discipline system, changing the way we build community and get students to connect to each other, changing the way our staff, our teachers, connect with each other and work with each other. We have teachers who start every class with a circle. We have teachers who will stop class entirely to deal with a problem with a circle. We have kindergartners holding a circle out at recess with their friends to solve a problem. A quote that I want to leave you with: there isn't anyone you couldn't learn to love once you've heard their story. I hope you take this forward and know that when you connect with someone as a human being and focus on their relationship and learn their story, that's the way to approach any situation, any conflict with more compassion and kindness. And I hope that's what you take forward with you. Thank you.